Ceann for the opportunity to speak on this long-awaited climate action and low-carbon development bill today, which will, amongst other things, provide a statutory basis for the transition of the Republic of Ireland into a low-carbon, climate resilient and environmentally sustainable economy by the year 2050. If enacted by the Oireachtas, it will be the first piece of climate change legislation to be enacted in the history of the Irish state, which is of course a key milestone and one which I believe must be acknowledged by all sides of the House as being a positive first step in Ireland's effort to combat climate change. It must also be noted that, if passed, Ireland will be one of only a few EU member states to have a dedicated climate change legislation, and as such will exhibit our country as being a European leader on the issue at present. This targeted change, which is a national objective of this government, will have the highest regard for existing international agreements, such as the United Nations framework on climate change and our current obligations under EU law. For example, it will formally oblige the state to adhere to both EU and international climate change targets, such as the 20% reduction in emissions by 2020 over 1995 levels. And I must state that I warmly welcome this aspect of the proposed bill. Although this is a new bill on the topic, this is not the first time which climate change and the damaging effect it has on our natural environment has been discussed in this House. I have the privilege to sit on the Oireachtas Environmental Committee, and in this committee I have listened to many submissions by local organisations, companies and members of the public on the damaging effect which climate change is having on their daily lives currently. Those living along the western seaboard are particularly at risk from the changing weather effects, and it is indeed a very worrying topic for my constituency in both County Sligo and indeed in County Leitrim. I ultimately fear that the natural environment which we will eventually pass on to our grandchildren will be irreversibly damaged unless real efforts such as those contained in this bill are enacted and adhered to, and on a global scale. However, Ceann, I am pleased that this bill provides the first opportunity for us as Irish legislators to make attempts to combat this situation in our own country, which in my opinion has been spiralling out of control in recent times. We are setting a strong international example, and I firmly believe that this bill will continuously develop and expand over the oncoming years. The overall transition of the Irish approach to climate change will be achieved by the introduction of two statutory plans, a natural mitigation plan and the national adaptation framework. The plan will guide policy in relation to greenhouse gas emissions, reducing and climate change adaptation. The other major feature of the bill is the establishment of an expert advisory council called the National Expert Advisory Council on Climate Change. This new body will consist of between 9 and 11 members, whose aim will be to advise and make expert recommendations to the Minister for the Environment. Its chair will be independent, but it will include top officials from EPA, Teagasc, Sustainable Energy Ireland and the ESRI. The introduction of this new body is a vital aspect of this bill, in my opinion, and it will bring all the key stakeholders on the topic together under one umbrella, which is the one key goal of advising government on the issue of climate change. Whilst the proposed climate change legislation is largely welcomed in many fronts, there are, however, some concerns over certain aspects of this bill, and there are many who believe that this does not go far enough in combating the issue. For example, the number of my concerned constituents have contacted me about this particular bill in recent times in order to state their fears. Some believe that one area which could warrant further investigation is the powers adjudicated to the National Expert Advisory Council. It has been discussed that the body could be ignored by government or not listened to, or that the report it produces may not be. Another issue raised with me is why there have been so long-term mitigation targets set out in this bill. Whilst understanding our commitments up to and as far as 2020, and indeed I understand that negotiations are in place for up to 2030. I believe the longer-term targets would have been beneficial and should be considered. Likewise, the fact that there has been no definition of what low carbon actually means within the context of this bill is unfortunate, and I believe that this is something which can and should be changed in the next stage of the bill passage through the Oireachtas. In conclusion, I wish to state that I am fully supportive of this proposed piece of legislation, as I believe that it brings clarity on the fact that Ireland is now fully committed to playing our part in tackling international climate change. We as legislators need to stand up play our part in protecting our climate and our environment for future generations. And I also know that it has taken a great deal of time and effort to get this bill onto the floor of the House, and I wish to commend both former Minister Phil Hogan and indeed present Minister, Minister Alan Kelly for the work they have put into the bill, and also their department officials. I would also appreciate it if the Minister would provide the House with further clarity on some of the concerns which I have sought to raise here this evening during the debate.